All right, welcome back. Week 10 of the Check Number Sports Podcast. I'm Dan, joined by Matt today. Zach could not make it this week.
Sadly.
Yeah, and in the words of Zach, this was the wrong one to miss because we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. A lot of college basketball stuff, a lot of
Absolute
football
banger.
stuff.
A
Yeah, a
banger's
lot of
coming.
football stuff, and baseball is back. So we got some baseball stuff to talk about. And we can actually start with baseball in our intro. Big trade today involving a star first baseman and Matt Olson to the
Wow.
Braves.
Unbelievable. I was shocked. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, I can't believe that Freddie Freeman is no longer going to be a Brave.
Yeah.
Like I mean, over the course of the offseason, like there were talks like they're like he just hasn't signed yet. We're just like, what's going on? And like it's crazy to think that he's no longer a Brave.
Yeah.
And Braves fans like should rejoice, honestly, though, because they basically they went from a top like 2 first baseman to the 3rd best, probably.
Yeah. They got a great deal. And also don't forget the NL has a DH now. So I don't think it's over for Freddie Freeman in Atlanta, but it's definitely not boding well. And nonetheless, the Braves won a World Series. They got their ring.
Yeah.
They did what they had to do, but it's still it is their franchise guy, the face of their team.
I mean, for the entire 2010s, the face of the franchise he's gone. And like we have no idea why. So
we don't.
And yeah, I think sure it's not over because there's the DH now, but I mean, I think Freddie Freeman should be playing first base at the end of the day. So it doesn't look good at all. But
no, it does not.
But hey, Braves fans rejoice, but as a Mets fan, I hate it because it puts them right back in contention, right back in it. So, but we will later talk about the Mets.
Yeah, we'll later talk about the Mets and Freddie Freeman, maybe some predictions later. But we can get into a big topic this week, and that's college basketball. March Madness tournament. Selection Sunday was yesterday. Came out with a bracket. I thought they did a good job.
Me
I
too.
think there were some teams that were graded a little high, a little low. One thing that stood out to me is I don't see how you leave Texas A&M out of the field.
Yeah, I had that too. I mean, I get it. They started off pretty bad, but then they had some pretty big wins. Like and they almost won the SEC tournament. That one kind of shocked me. I was very confused. Like I'll list off some people they beat at the end of the season. They beat Auburn, they beat Alabama at Alabama, and they beat Arkansas. And this was all within like the last month. So that one really, I was shocked. But other than that, I don't think they did a bad job.
No, I mean, I just didn't see how you could leave out Texas A&M over some other teams that got in at large bids. I mean, Davidson in large bids, San Francisco, Wyoming, some of these teams that were good, but don't have the quality wins that Texas A&M has.
Exactly. That makes zero sense. Like they didn't put in context that they made it to the final round of the SEC tournament. Like what? Yeah.
I mean, I was at the SEC tournament to see them beat Arkansas. That looked like a team that definitely should be playing in the NCAA tournament. But we've got a couple topics to talk about today with some interesting parts of the bracket. We can start with the first couple of seeds, the first 3 or 4 lines of seeds, the 1 through 4 seeds. There's some interesting matchups here, I think. In reality, I don't think many match upsets will happen, but there's some games that can be played close. So what were some games that you circled in these couple lines that could be interesting games?
Yeah, for me, like Villanova bias aside or anything, I really am not convinced with Providence.
Neither am I.
I genuinely think that they could lose in the first round.
South Dakota State's a very solid team.
Exactly. They're not bad at all. And when you look, they were 24-3, right? That's that's very impressive, right? But then you look at their Big East games. Again, I think it was a 14-2, something like that. Which again is impressive, but you look at the box score of those games, those were a lot of close games, very, very close games. Like like I would argue that they had maybe 2 convincing wins out of all of the Big East wins, and it was against one of them was against Georgetown, and that really doesn't say much.
Yeah. No, not
and the
at
other
all.
one I think was against St. John's. Again,
Doesn't say much.
they're not an awful team, but they are definitely not like one of the more competitive teams in the Big East. So I genuinely think that I wouldn't be surprised at all if they lost in the first round. I think I actually have them losing.
Yeah,
first round of my
they were
bracket.
definitely one that I saw as a possible upset in the first round. Another one I saw was Arkansas against Vermont. Vermont is a really good team. They destroyed their
They came out
conference.
of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team. Arkansas kind of got screwed 2 years in a row. I mean, they had to play Colgate in the first round last year, who was really good, and they beat them. But now they got to come and play a team similar to that in Vermont. I don't think they're going to lose to Vermont, but I could see them getting very close to losing. And
Yes,
speaking
me
of
too.
Colgate, I think they're going to give Wisconsin a run for their money as well. If there's any 3 seed that can get upset by a 14 seed, I think that would be the one.
I think so too. I mean, yeah, they barely beat them last year. Or they Colgate actually, sorry, just beat or they barely lost to Arkansas. So like they can keep up with some of these more competitive teams. So
Yeah.
I had that one too. But other than that, I don't see that many like
No, neither do I. I don't see any happening, honestly.
Yeah.
But teams kind of nowhere. I mean, we saw Oral Roberts last year against Ohio State. And there was another 3-14. Yeah, it always happens in March. It always happens. We can move on to upsets that we see happen a lot, and that's 12-5 and 11-6 games. And I have a lot written down for these because I think there's a lot of teams that can get upset here. And I'm speaking of the Big East. I don't think this is going to happen because I believe this team is going to make a big run in the tournament. But I think UConn is going to have a little bit of trouble with New Mexico State in the first round of the tournament. I think the winner of Rutgers Notre Dame is going to give a run to Alabama, especially Rutgers.
I agree with that.
They've beaten a lot of teams. I think Indiana is going to give St. Mary's a run if they can get out of the play-in game. I have penciled in Virginia Tech beating Texas in that game.
I put that too.
Yeah, ACC champs as an 11 seed. It doesn't make sense. I think they're gonna beat Texas. UAB is gonna give a good run to Houston. Yeah, UAB over Houston. I think Michigan will give trouble to Colorado State, and Iowa State I think is going to give trouble to LSU. Their coach, LSU's coach, just parted ways with the team, so I think they could be a little, not super together in this one.
Plus, they have EJ Liddell, just absolute baller. So I think I think they could. That one I had one of them, and for me, I also put Houston. Like they on paper they were a good team. They are a pretty good team, but they had some really key injuries pretty early in the season, and then I don't know. I don't see either Edwards or White as being like those guys. Like I don't think they're a clear number one, either of them.
They lost their best scorer earlier in the year.
Exactly.
Marcus Sasser, and I think another guy went down. So I think Houston's good. I guess UAB is not anything super great, but it happens every year. 12-5 games. You see it every time.
Exactly. And for me too, I had Michigan upsetting in my bracket actually. Just because I mean, I know they are inconsistent. They had a bit of a disappointing season this year, to say the least. Yeah. But they definitely show flashes of what they could potentially do. Like I feel like they have the roster to really compete with some of these big teams. And I mean, they beat Purdue this year, but even though they split the series with Purdue, but still, Purdue is a top team in the country. Like they really can really compete with these other teams. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I just obviously a little inconsistent, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of teams here that I think can make runs. And speaking of double-digit seeds that can make deep runs, it pains me to say it as a Virginia fan, but I think Virginia Tech can really make a run in the tournament. They just won the ACC tournament somewhat convincingly, honestly. They ran away with it against UNC and then ran away with it against Duke. And
yeah, that was crazy.
You know, they play an inconsistent Texas team in the first round. Then they play Purdue. I know Purdue is good, but I mean, they just beat Duke, who
they're
maybe
also Purdue is nothing crazy defensively.
They're not.
So
they're really not. And if you can shut down Jaden Ivey, they don't really have a second scoring option. Really, they can really trust. And I think a couple other Big Ten teams, Michigan, Indiana, and Rutgers, can all make runs.
I can definitely see Michigan again. Inconsistent, but like they show flashes.
All you got to do is catch lightning in a bottle.
They got to put it together, and I think they could make a big run too.
Yeah. And we can go to our Final Four prediction here. We have Zach's prediction. He thinks Arizona is going to win it. Which is an interesting pick. And so who'd you have in your Final Four and in your championship?
All right, yeah. So my Final Four was Duke. Here, actually. I have Duke playing Purdue and Villanova playing Auburn.
Wow.
No, I know. I get it. No number 1 seed. But I don't know. I kind of just wanted to – I'm just going off a gut feeling. I can obviously see Gonzaga going all the way.
Yeah, Duke's really the only one in your Final Four that I would really disagree with. I don't think Duke makes it past Texas Tech in the Sweet 16. I think they have a little too many holes. They're a little inconsistent, but no, I can definitely see them making the Final Four. That would be the only one. Honestly, I could see Auburn making it. I actually have them in my Final Four. And then the other teams that you named, I could definitely see.
No, yeah, Four. And look with Duke. I know they have been inconsistent. They didn't win the ACC. It kind of wasn't that close. But I will say, like, this is Duke we're talking about. All right.
It is. I mean, they have Coach K's final season.
Coach K's final season. They really want to get it. And also you look at this team. I just think that the ceiling for some of these players is just crazy high, like especially with AJ Griffin. I just think he just needs to be more aggressive. He just needs to be more aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, in the ACC championship game, all he was doing was shooting threes, and he wasn't making them, but he wasn't even attacking the basket or anything. Like he was standing outside the 3-point line, waiting for the ball, and then when he got it, he would take a 35-foot three and miss it. And
he just I don't really get why he just wants to be a spot up next to Paolo Banchero.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's their game plan, but I don't think so. I mean, he's way better than that. Exactly.
That's not his play style. Like he needs to he needs more touches. Like he doesn't thrive like just, standing in the corner or moving off the ball. His game is he can create shots for himself. Just give him the ball more and he could. We've seen it earlier this season when he gets the ball. He'll drop 30, 25, 27. Yeah. So yeah, I just really think the ceiling is just very high for them, but they are a little inconsistent. I will say that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I kept it 2 1 seeds and 2 2 seeds. I have Gonzaga and Arizona as my 1 seeds. I have Kentucky and Auburn as the 2 seeds in the Final Four, and then I've got Arizona beating Gonzaga in the championship. So I actually agree with Zach's pick for Arizona. A lot of people are a little down on them right now, which I don't understand. I think they just won the Pac-12, coming back and beating UCLA. They've got a bunch of scorers. They're very good defensively. With a first-year head coach, I think what they've done is very impressive. And then with Kentucky, I know they just lost in the SEC tournament, but I mean, they've got probably the player of the year in Oscar Tshiebwe. They've got a bunch of scorers on the perimeter. And then with Auburn, I think they have the most talented player in college basketball in Jabari Smith. And I think that, it was kind of fluky that they lost to Texas A&M. There's, one of their second best scorers was 0 for 15 or 0 for 14.
That's not going to happen
again. It's not going to happen again. And they still only lost by 6 or 7. So I think this is an Auburn team that can definitely make a run. And then Gonzaga speaks for itself. Chet Holmgren, Drew Timme. They're going to want it again, and I can see them winning it, but I have been losing in the championship for the second straight year in this one. But yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I actually forgot to mention my championship game. I have Purdue and Villanova, and
Villanova win.
Of course, I have Villanova winning with a score of 75-69.
I'll say Arizona over Gonzaga, 73-65.
Look, I understand I might be a little biased, but like, come on. At the beginning of the season, they were already like a championship contender. Like, they fell off, but then they started to find their footing again. And they just won the Big East. And I know Colin Gillespie won Big East MVP, but like he really didn't even play that well. And so like I just, as long as Colin is like on his A game, like they will be a scary good team. And with Eric Dixon and then Caleb Daniels is a great 6-man as well. I mean, I genuinely think that they could be a scary good team. Like, just the names go on and on.
Yeah.
They have the talent, and they have one of the best coaches of all time.
Yeah.
No,
I mean,
no bias again.
He's definitely a top 5 coach, I'd say, college basketball. So yeah, I mean, Villanova, they've been there before. They've got probably the most experienced player in maybe the whole tournament in Colin Gillespie.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
he's
like his
man,
8th year.
He's a man of playing amongst boys.
Yeah. I mean, he goes to the same school as you, and he's about 7 years older than you. But
it's like 25 and
yeah,
and playing against 18-year-olds.
Yeah. So I mean, it's an advantage there. No, I like Villanova. I think they're experienced. They've got a good coach, and that always bodes well in March.
Yeah, and exactly. And I also didn't mention Justin Moore. I think he's a legitimate secondary option to Colin. He could, and he can take over games when he wants to. So like they got the scoring threats. They play pretty good defense. They play solid defense. And they have decent depth. And then just as long as, and Slater's a great complementary piece too. So again, no bias, like trying to stay as not biased as possible, but I really think they have a good shot this year.
No, they definitely do. But I think there's a lot of teams that I can see making a run. I mean, we didn't even mention Tennessee and Iowa. I guess I don't know if we mentioned Iowa.
We didn't
UCLA. I mean, there's a lot of teams that can really make a deep run. Texas Tech, Illinois. We didn't even mention the Kofi Coburn. And then, I mean, some other double-digit seeds that I'll just mention. I think that Miami can make some noise. Loyola Chicago can make some noise.
Loyola Chicago, hey, they made like the Final Four.
A couple years ago. They made a run last year, beating Illinois in the second round. But I think it's going to be a pretty good March Madness. A lot of good early matchups, which you like to see every year.
Definitely.
And we can see who picks the best bracket out of the three of us. But
it'll be mine.
Maybe with your questionable Final Four there. But I don't know. We don't have Zach's predictions. So he'll give it to us, and we'll send them out on TikTok and give us our thoughts. But yeah, good March Madness coming up this week. It starts playing games Tuesday, Wednesday. Start the first round Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think that first Thursday and Friday is one of the best days of sports all year.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
so
I'm gonna love
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I'm
it's
gonna
gonna be
love it.
great. But